Good evening and welcome to this candidate forum for the Montessorino City Council. This webinar is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Southwest Santa Clara Valley, which covers the cities of Campbell, Los Gatos, Montessorino, and Saratoga. The League of Women Voters is a national organization that provides nonpartisan voter services and does not endorse or oppose any political party or candidate. But we do advocate when we have studied an issue such as education and developed a position statement on it. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our League's website and other social media sites. My name is Eleanor Yick, current president of the Southwest Santa Clara Valley League and the moderator for tonight's forum. I am pleased to welcome and introduce the candidates who are running for the 2 open seats on the Montessorino City Council. Candidates, would you please put on your video and audio now? Thank you, candidates. And I would like to introduce our candidates for tonight's forum. I'll begin with Burton Craig. Thank you. Daniel Labouvey. Thank you. Bryan Mekechuk and Rowena Turner. Thank you. Thank you, candidates, so much for agreeing to participate in this forum tonight. The candidates will make their opening statements tonight in alphabetical order. After the opening statements, the candidates will respond to questions in a randomized order. Before we begin, I would like to highlight some ground rules the candidates have agreed to observe during this forum. The League supports the accepted norms of civil discourse, and in that light, the candidates have agreed to follow those norms that were outlined in a document they received. For example, candidates have agreed not to interrupt each other and to follow the allotted response times. Candidates are reminded that they don't have to use the full time allotment, but are requested not to exceed the allotted time. This forum is scheduled to last approximately 1 hour. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce her or himself by answering this question in their opening statement. What qualifies you to be a Montessorino City Council member for a 4-year term? Our timer for tonight's forum is League member Wendy Hendry. Hi, Wendy. She will give each candidate reminders as they answer questions about the time remaining and when the time has elapsed. She'll give them reminders at 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then a stop sign. Candidates have been requested to end their sentence once the stop sign is displayed. After these opening statements, candidates will have 60 seconds to answer subsequent questions, which have been submitted through the registration process or developed by League members. The moderator will announce and enforce the time limits for each question. And lastly, the forum will close with the candidates speaking in reverse order from the opening statement and answering this question. What question do you wish you had been asked tonight and why? And candidates will again have 90 seconds for their closing statement. And now let's officially begin. We will begin with each candidate's opening statement responding to this question. What qualifies you to be a Montessorino City Council member? Candidates will have 90 seconds to respond, and we will be hearing from the candidates in alphabetical order, and we will begin with candidate Burton Craig.
Hello, thank you. I'm Burton Craig, and I'm running for Montessorino City Council. I have been a resident of Montessorino for 17 years. My wife and I have raised 4 wonderful children here. I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer at an investment management firm. I had the privilege to serve as a Montessorino City Council member for 8 years, including 2 terms as mayor. During my time on the council, we had strong financial policies where our budget was balanced and spending was controlled. We worked hard to increase transparency and make it easier to work with the city. We worked hard with our residents who are building their dream homes or improving their existing properties. On previous councils, we had civility and respect to our fellow council members and staff. We abided by the Brown Act, which ensures the work of the city is done in public. This is not happening today, and it is hurting our city. This is one of the foremost reasons I am running again. COVID-19 has made it hard to meet face-to-face. Luckily, technology has given us the opportunity to meet via Zoom. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. You can learn more about me at www.burtoncraig.com.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Daniel Labouvey.
Hi, my name is Dan Labouvey, and I'm running for Montessorino City Council. I'm a hands-on and data-driven leader. As a technology executive, I have broad experience in strategic problem solving and operations management, and have put these skills to good use in my short time on the council. I fully research topics and often bring additional data and analysis into meeting. I have been called the hardest working council member, even by those I seldom agree with. As a council member, I have proactively focused on 3 core objectives. Number 1, preserve and enhance Montessorino's unique residential character. Number 2, implement sustainable and transparent financial policy. And number 3, adopt best-in-class governance to enable high-quality services to residents. I'm concerned about the California legislature's vision to turn every single-family lot into triplex or more. I'm concerned about developers using the Housing Accountability Act to bully the City Council with lawsuits. I've been working on these issues for the past 16 months and championed an ordinance to require that all land use issues are first reviewed by Site and Architecture before coming to City Council. I championed the Good Neighbor Site and Architectural Development Transparency Resolution to increase resident notification, access, and evaluation of development proposals. I drafted municipal code changes to close loopholes that are actively exploited by developers. I offered actionable solutions during a joint study session to restate Montessorino design guidelines as objective standards to prevent legal challenge. I've also made significant progress on objectives 2 and 3, which you can read about on my bio on votersedge.org. If you would like my work for me.
Thank you. And now candidate Bryan Mekechuk.
Hi, I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to be a candidate for Montessorino City Council because I bring a perspective that no one else has. My training is as a CPA and then a management consultant. I know budgets and finance. I'm a numbers guy. While Montessorino is a small entity, we spend way too much time and money on litigation that is entirely avoidable. Who thought that Montessorino would be spending money on legal fees in 2020 over the fence issue that started with the Pagets in 2001? The current City Council has created matters resulting in legal expenses and a lack of transparency through closed sessions since 2019. My most important qualifications include my passion for the city of Montessorino. When my wife, Joanne Sinclair, and I moved to Montessorino in 1997, we knew it was the perfect place to raise a family. Now, since we're practically empty nesters and I'm retired, it's the ideal time for me to give back to the community we love. We've tried to instill that sense of giving back to our 2 children, so both Nick and Kate volunteered to be on the Montessorino Youth Commission. City Council then appointed me as Montessorino's representative to Silicon Valley Clean Energy's Customer Program Advisory Group in 2017. Last October, Joanne and I became US citizens, and 2 weeks later, I was appointed to Montessorino's Site and Architectural Commission. Importantly, citizenship also allows me to run for City Council. I strongly believe in environmental sustainability and will endeavor to use my abilities to maintain Montessorino's rural character.
Thank you. And now candidate Rowena Turner.
Thank you so much. I am running for re-election. I have been a council member for 4 years and served as mayor last year. So I know the issues, the struggles we have with housing, the strengths and weaknesses of our business processes, and how to prepare our neighborhoods for wildfires and earthquakes. I come to this position with a broad business background. I believe that I bring a rational, pragmatic approach to financial management. And I have a real desire to make city government work for our residents and not be a burden on our residents. I felt our administrative expenses were on an unsustainable trajectory. I worked with the council to make several changes. We made some significant reductions to our overall expenses. We made some structural changes that will flatten the growth curve in coming years. We completely revamped the budgeting process, and we put all of this on the website that makes it more transparent and easy to understand. We also streamlined some of our internal processes, converting our manual payroll and our accounts payable from manual to online systems. Automating our processes will improve our services and make our internal operations more efficient. The housing legislation being proposed in Sacramento represents a serious threat to our neighborhoods. I am committed to finding ways to meet the state requirements while preserving the unique character of our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will be asking the candidates questions in a randomized order. I'll always mention the person who is going to go first before I read the question, so they have a few minutes or a few seconds to compose their answer. So we're going to begin with our first question, and Bryan Mekechuk will be the respondent. The question is, and some of you have alluded to this in your opening statements, but I'd ask you to restate it and perhaps add on to it. What are your top 3 priorities for Montessorino?
I guess my top 3 priorities are reducing avoidable litigation, prioritizing new equipment by PG&E to reduce electrical outages, and also improve transparency at City Council through fewer closed sessions.
Okay, thank you. Next, Rowena Turner.
Yes, I have 3 priorities. The first one is housing legislation. Montessorino is facing increasing pressure to meet the state's housing mandates. Our challenge is to find ways to meet the state's requirements while preserving the environment that attracted us to this beautiful city. It is critical that Montessorino maintain local control over its zoning. This has been and will continue to be my major focus for the coming years. The next one is fiscal responsibility. Another goal of mine involves the importance of providing oversight and accountability as a good steward of the city's finances. It is important that we drive sound fiscal policies to control spending, to address the city's unfunded pension liability, employee retirement benefits, and to control the rising cost of city administration. I believe council should do what it can to facilitate the enjoyment of our residents' homes and properties. We should maintain high quality infrastructure, our roads, and our business processes. Our city should be easy to work with.
Thank you. And now, Burton Craig.
So time and time again, I have watched council members disrespect other members on the council and city staff. I was actually at a meeting where 2 city council members walked out of a closed session meeting after such contentious yelling that it could be heard through the walls. Some of you have seen this play out on Nextdoor with insulting diatribes directed at fellow council members. I have been to council meetings where a former council member showed such disdain to city staff, failing to work with them on important city matters, basically saying that he would not talk to the staff outside of council meetings. This council member then insulted the staff, calling them liars and cheap, dismissing pleas for decorum, and then abruptly resigning his position on the council. When I first decided to run from council, it was stressed that this was a commitment not to take lightly, that you are undertaking a great responsibility to work with the city. So I would revisit our code of ethics documents so that our council will return to a practice of treating each other with respect. There should be no more insulting other council members and staff.
Thank you. And now, Daniel Labouvey.
As I stated in my opening statement, my #1 priority is to preserve and enhance Montessorino's unique residential character. I think that the city is just under assault by both the state legislature and by developers, and it needs to be job 1 to just dig in and start developing our objective standards. We're just not doing enough, and we're not moving fast enough on that goal. My second one was to implement sustainable and transparent financial policy. I've actually made a lot of contributions in that area. I actually coached the finance manager to restate all of the financials in public sector style so that operating budget, capital budget, and and reserves are easily digestible, and surplus deficit numbers are told. My third priority is to adopt best-in-class governance to enable high-quality services to residents. I actually started
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now move on to our next question, and actually we're going to begin with candidate Labouvey. So the question is, and please be specific, why did you decide to run for city council at this particular time? And what is one characteristic you possess that you feel will benefit our town and why?
I started getting into city government as when a developer proposed a subdivision in my property that I felt did not meet Montessorino city design guidelines. The Site and Architectural Commission agreed on a 5-0 vote, and a public hearing agreed on a 3-0 vote. Elected representatives are supposed to respect the voice of the residents and protect their interests, but this covenant seems to have recently been broken. Area of operational excellence and brought to the city ad hoc committee to actually focus on improving the process and so forth in this committee to instill such simple things like an online customer support portal and implementing performance review processes for the city employees and the city manager and so forth. So, you know, I would like to continue my work. I think that there's a lot of work to do, and I look forward to serving the public.
Thank you. I do want to make you aware that your transmission cut in and out a little bit. I'm not sure if something is loose with your connection, but I just want you to be aware of that. I did hear most of what you were saying. Our next candidate to respond to that question will be Bryan Mekechuk.
Hi. So I've lived here, my family and I have lived here since '97, and that's 23 years. And I was never a US citizen. So I became a US citizen so that I could vote in our 2020 election and so that I could run for city council. So that answered the question, you know, why? And I'm retired, I'm a CPA, and I would like to give back to the community what we've received here. So that's what I'm interested in.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Rowena Turner.
Yes, one of the things that is particularly important to me is to say something about the housing. I believe that the most serious issue facing our city today is the legislation that is being proposed, that's being passed, where single family homes could be torn down and replaced with the 4 market rate housing or even a 3 or 4 story complex. These could be built with regard to without regards to setbacks and even without regard to parking. The streets could be clogged with parked cars. The other reason I want to run for city council is to be able to make sure that we keep our costs down. I don't want the city council to spend. I believe that we should be looking at ways in which we can reduce our expenditures. The other one is affordable housing. Affordable housing is an important issue. When I looked at the Hacienda property, that was one that was a win-win situation for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Burton Craig.
So the main reason I'm running is because I was asked to. What is going on at City Hall? I was constantly getting that question. Why was there such an exodus that has happened over the past few months? And when I left the council, I actually tried to continue one of my initial goals, which was bringing the city council meetings live to our residents. So I was attending every single meeting after I left. And what I saw was just appalling. The staff was constantly berated, like we saw at a recent council meeting. The council was overstepping their mandates as stewards of the city, and instead they were micromanaging staff without regard or courtesy on critical issues. It takes a while and costs money to recruit and onboard new staff. Any savings that might have been gained have surely been lost due to the costs that we've incurred with these vacant positions. Is this the type of council and atmosphere we want in our city? No, our employees and residents deserve better.
Thank you. The next question, and we'll begin actually with you, Burton Craig. It relates to something you were just talking about, and it did come up a number of times in our questions that were submitted from the community. How can Montessorino rebuild its image? Most of its experienced staff has left, and the ones who remained felt threatened and unionized.
The first thing that we need to do to rebuild our staff is to show them respect. They have not gotten that in a long time. When I was on the council, we worked very closely with staff. The staff is what does the day-to-day work. They do the hard work of the city. They're the ones that are constantly going out there and making sure that people can build their homes, that they can improve their property. They work with other cities to make sure that we are a part of a good citizen of the entire county. And I don't know what happened. Ever since I left, I've just seen this fall apart. The morale fell apart. And I'll just have to say, in one area that I thought we had a great improvement of was our building inspector. We had a less than optimal building inspector a long time ago, and we finally recruited a really good one, and everybody really liked him. I got nothing but kudos ever since he started on the job. He has now left. We lost our I'm out of time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Daniel Labouvey.
Hi. So I did start an ad hoc committee called the Operational Excellence and Customer Orientation and Operational Excellence Ad Hoc Committee. We started focusing on very reasonable and easy to understand terms like solicitation of resident feedback, efficient processing and tracking of resident reported issues, strategic budget and work planning, metrics-based evaluation, operations review and status reporting, and root cause corrective actions. I think Mr. Craig's characterization that asking the city to raise the bar and do better is a little unnerving. It's the residents do deserve better. There's been multiple audits where we did go in and find that there was no reasonable employment contracts in place or employee handbooks. We put these in place just recently. The financial audit yielded many negative findings that we had to go patch with new financial policy. The city planning department yielded 15 negative findings. These all.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Bryan Mekechuk.
Hi. So I think that staff are super important to the city of Montessorino. And over the past year, I've done my best to speak at city council during the open communications and commend and thank those employees and versus criticize them. And I was always looking for something nice to say. And there's lots of nice things to say about our staff. So I think that, we really have to appreciate them. And to some extent, we've got to pay them what the market is. I'm sorry, but if other cities are raising their wages, then we have to meet the bar. And the cost of an employee isn't just the salary. It's the salary cost, the training, the cost of hiring, the time, and all that translates into poor service for residents during times of high turnover. While
Thank
some
you.
turnover.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And now Rowena Turner. Rowena, we can't hear you. Is your audio off?
Yes, it's unfortunate that we have had several people leave. Some of them certainly represent a loss to the city. Each person has a story, and I don't think it would be appropriate to talk about these individual cases. But in both the public and the private sector, employees come and go. There are benefits to the employee and also to the employers to both sides. One is up-to-date technology. Two is new ways of doing business. Three is enthusiasm of a new job. Opportunity to lower administrative costs is another one. So in hindsight, it worked out. We were able to change outdated and expensive benefits and business practices that the city had. When we changed our employee benefits, we hired a competent labor attorney and negotiated to remove benefits that other cities no longer give. We made sure our current employees were not affected. They were left with the same benefits that they had before. These changes were only made for new hires. Let me give you an example. When our finance manager retired, we now have a seasoned and experienced finance manager. He updated our financial processes, implemented best known accounting practices. He also reduced our costs based on streamlining our operations.
Thank you. And actually, we'll be starting with you, Rowena Turner, for the next question. And again, some of these questions will hit on topics that you've probably mentioned, and I would ask you to mention them again and maybe expand on it. What will you do to improve city services, increase transparency, and make Montessorino business friendly? Rowena?
Okay. Sure. One of the things that we have are and that's really critical to many of our citizens, is really the quality of life and traffic. Again, I cannot overemphasize the great work of Jessica Kahn and Steve Lenardis. We have the Dave's Avenue Elementary School project, where we have a traffic calming policy for residential streets. And we look at cut through traffic, and we were able to put speed humps and undulations for many of our streets. The next one is the Highway 9 Winchester Safety Project. That is a project where we wanted to minimize the right turns on Ridgecrest that went to the Almond Grove neighborhood. We implemented a traffic citation program for people making illegal right turns. And because of COVID, we put that project on hold. The other project that we were looking at is really improving our streets. And I'm strongly supporting fixing and maintaining our roads.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Burton Craig.
So when I take a look at what the city can do to increase its processes, I look at what we started with when I was on the council. We created a brand new website, and we created an infrastructure, and we created a mindset inside of the city where it was create and deploy, and everything that gets created goes on the web. This helps us with our transparency. This helps us get information out to our residents, and it builds the framework so that we can have a better two-way communication. What I've seen the council do since I have left has been very, very encouraging. I would like to come back and continue to work with the council. That is one of the things that I do in my day-to-day job, is improve processes, improve technologies, and to help cities. And because I'm actually working over at Los Gatos, helping them with some of their processes. And I would love to come back and do the same with Montessorino.
Thank you very much. Daniel Labouve.
Hi. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we can do to increase resident customer experience. Number one is solicitation of resident feedback. I mean, we have no annual survey that we do today. Many cities like Palo Alto, this is a standard routine where they send out an annual survey and survey the residents in terms of what are their cares and what do they want to do and how do they want to spend the budgets. I think that, you know, the other one that I know my neighbors in particular, you know, when they contact City Hall, there is no mechanism for them to track an issue that they brought up or raised other than continual email modification. I mean, this needs to be put into a workflow and put on the website as a customer support portal. It's a very simple thing to do. It just has not been done. And I think these things can be done in a straightforward way. I think on the budget side, budget transparency has been just, you know, a very high priority. Again, I've worked with the city finance manager to restate the finances and to pay off the pension liability of $700,000.
Thank you. And Bryan Mekechuk.
As a new person on council, What I'd like to do is leverage the things that are in motion today and make sure that they work and that they get moved forward. In terms of business in Montessorino, really all we've got is residential construction. So the things that are going on with the planning commission and then the handoff to the building official and the permitting process, I think there's some improvements there that can be made. And we can look to leading practices from other communities there. But as others have said, you know, there is a large technology component that needs to be invested in, and I would fully support that and the adoption of that.
Thank you. And Bryan, you're going to be going first on this next question. Again, this is something that I know is a major issue in all of our communities. But specifically, what is your position on multi-family zoning? Should Montessorino acquiesce to or challenge the state's requirements?
We don't have the room and the real estate for multifamily housing. I think that the development on Highway 9, the old hacienda, that was a good move for us. And those parcels are not available anymore. South of Highway 9 is extreme fire risk, and it is along a corridor, which is good. But inside of Montessorino, there's our streets, our lack of arterial routes limit us. So I think what we need to do is work with other similar cities in the state of California to see if there's a way that we can carve things out for those unique cities. And it's not just the South Bay. I think it's got to be California.
Thank you. Rowena Turner.
Let me make sure. Okay, yes, I'm on. I want to talk to you about the overriding, the state's overriding of our local zoning laws. I am opposed to basically a one-size-fits-all project approach from Sacramento. I think it's critical for cities, especially small cities like Sacramento, like Montessorino, to maintain control over our own zoning. While this began as an effort to increase affordable housing, it has really morphed into an ideological struggle. We have powerful state senators who have said publicly that single-family homes are immoral, yards are immoral, and he is pushing legislation designed to stamp them out. I believe that residents should have choices. They should be able to live in single-family homes, high-rises, fourplexes, or even garden apartments. I don't claim to have all the answers to fixing the housing problem that we have, but one of the things that we should do as a city is to oppose local zoning control to Sacramento, and we should actually join several cities to band together to make our voices heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll go to Burton Craig.
So this has been an issue that has been with us ever since I've been on the council, and it will continue to be an issue. I remember when I was leaving the council, I brought Evan Lowe in, who's our state assembly member, and near the end of the town hall, I asked him, when he looked at Montessorino, what did he see Montessorino changing into? And he just kind of gestured with his hand over the whole city, and he said, I see multifamily housing inside of Montessorino on every street. And I was a little taken aback by that, because the state has constantly worked to take the decision-making process for zoning and density and type of housing away from us. And we have to start fighting back on this. The city is closed in terms of development. We don't have any more room. We have a few nice lots that are around the city, but we don't have the infrastructure. VTA has taken away our transportation, and there is so much housing that has been approved around the county that we need to start working to get that built before they come back to Montessorino and say, you guys got to build for us.
Thank you. And now Daniel Labouvey.
Yeah, I think that, let's be clear, there's no such thing as below market rate housing in Montessorino. Without extreme California or city subsidies and And Montessorino just flat out cannot afford subsidies at the level that would be required to push a development into even low or even moderate rate housing. The only reason that we have any kind of attainment against our RENA numbers today is that we opportunistically get ADU builds, primarily for private offices and so forth, on private residences. And then we also had sort of the grand compromise of the Hacienda project where we got a couple of attached homes. Those types of situations are not going to come frequently in Montessorino because all of the land is private residential and owned by somebody else. And that is not generally the type of environment that Montessorino residents is looking for. The quotas increased this year for RENA by 135%.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll be starting with Daniel Labouve again. There have been a number of questions submitted about fire safety, removing trees and/or enforcing pruning requirements. What has the town done and/or should continue to do specifically to address this danger? And what other ideas do you have?
So fire safety is a real critical matter for Montessorino. I know that in the last set of fires, my wife had packed up the cars and was ready to go, right? Even though, in the flatlands of Montessorino, we're fairly safe. But, in terms of the grand scheme of things, we're still designated as a high-risk area. I particularly went through CERT training, so the Community Emergency Response Team training, and have been volunteering on the CERT team as a trained member. I think that is one area where we can help our residents out. If the emergency does arise, we need to have trained individuals in each of the network communities that can help other residents get prepared and get out if need be. I think the other one is, the ADU laws with 4-foot setbacks, does not allow a fireman to get between a house and a setback if a fire structure did need to be saved or, there was some fire issues. I think there's just some unrealistic expectations about, coming from and being mandated by the legislature in terms of, with regards to fire safety.
Thank you. Next, Bryan Mekechuk.
Okay, so you're asking the question, what can we do as a state to improve our wildfire safety? So there's two aspects of wildfires that I see. One is coming over the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I bicycle through El Cerino open space at least 4 times a week. And I think that maintaining the fire break there is absolutely critical, and they did it just maybe 3 weeks ago. They went through there. I think that that's got to be a priority every single year, at least twice during the fire season. So that's one. Then the second source of wildfires will be electrical, and PG&E should invest in sectionalizers, and that's equipment so that you're able to isolate sections of the grid in high risk area, extreme risk areas. And we don't do that today. So that needs to be reprioritized.
Thank you. Next, Rowena Turner. Can hear you.
After decades of neglect, our forests have become overgrown. We have allowed dead trees and underbrush to accumulate and dry out, just waiting for a spark to set off. That spark could come from lightning, poorly maintained power lines, or even an arsonist. Is it any wonder that we're plagued with wildfires? The city has a sponsored wildfire awareness program, and I'm part of the CERT group. We've established an alert system through the county to give more people warning when a fire might be approaching. And we've encouraged people, I've particularly encouraged people to create bug-out bags with essential items in case of quick evacuation. We could possibly do more to discourage people from building in the fire zone. This would be a pushback that we can do to Sacramento, that we're located in a high fire area. In my opinion, the single most significant thing that we can do to reduce the impact of wildfires is to clear out the fuel. but that would require action at the state level. And in the current political environment, I hope it happens.
Thank you. And Burton Craig?
So my dad was a fireman, and it's always been a topic that's been near and dear to me. First of all, we have a great fire department with the Santa Clara County Fire District. And it's always been amazing how these guys perform all the time. They're on call 24/7, and they're always ready to help us. But as we take a look at fires becoming more and more prevalent, we really need to start developing a mentality that we need to be able to pack up and get out of here at any time very quickly. We need to start working with our residents. We need to participate in all of the different programs that the fire department offers for fire safety, fire evacuation. We need to have well-defined routes. The other thing that we need to do is take a look at what's going on with Los Gatos. In fact, we were invited to participate in Los Gatos in a joint or helping to fund a joint position. And as of the meeting that I went to in Montessorino City Council, we were not willing to participate in that. And I would like to see us work a lot closer with Los Gatos.
Thank you. The next question here is going to be a yes or no answer. So just raise your hand. The question is, and raise your hand if your response is yes. If elected, do you plan to remain on the city council as a Montessorino resident for the duration of your term, which would be for 4 years? So if you agree that that's what you're committing to, please raise your hand so we can see it. Okay, thank you. I see everybody's hand up. The next question is also a raise your hand, and it's actually about one of the league positions. Please raise your hand if you are supportive of the California ballot Proposition 15, also known as the Schools and Community First ballot measure, sometimes called the split roll ballot measure. It's a position that the league supports and would create a split roll property tax and generate additional money for your city and local schools. If you're supportive of that, would you raise your hand? Thank you. So I don't see any hands raised there. All right, we'll now move on to our next question, and we're going to begin with you, Burton Craig. Do you anticipate any cuts to services in the future, particularly now as we attempt to emerge from COVID-19? If so, how will you prioritize them?
I don't anticipate any cuts coming. Our city has always been very financially sound. We've always had a balanced budget. We've always had extra money to put into reserves, and we have a very strong reserve position. As was mentioned earlier, we've paid off our unfunded liabilities. When I was on the council, we actually paid off our unfunded liabilities at that point also. And so with the size of the staff that we have, especially since it's a lot smaller these days, I could not see anywhere where there would be cuts.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Daniel Labouve.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Craig needs to take a closer look at the budget. So if we look at our budget, the recurring expenses minus the recurring revenues is only 160K in COVID. Now that's a good situation to be in compared to other cities that are running huge deficits. But that means that you only have $160,000, which is less than one full-time employee worth of money to play with. And again, that's a forecast, so we don't know where things are going to end up. So less than a 5% deviation on the revenue side during COVID will drive us into debt, structural debt. And so we do need to continue at expenses. With the current employee agreements, you know, you're essentially increasing year over year 75% of the budget by, you know, between 5 and 8%. That will send you into structural deficit if COVID continues and we continue to have very operating margins. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Bryan Mekechuk.
I don't think that we have an expense problem per se. I think that our revenues are sound. I think that our non-recurring revenues that relate to building fees and that sort of thing. I think that those will continue in the future. And I think that to the extent that we can make it easy for our residents to fix their homes, to increase the tax base, the property tax base, so that they can sell, and then other people that are new to the city come in and they raise the tax base, the property tax base, our revenues are going to increase. So I think that there's a revenue opportunity, not a cost problem.
Thank you. And Rowena Turner?
Yes, I don't see a cut in services. However, and I also know that the city is in decent shape. We're not in great shape. What concerns me now is that we're living in very precarious times. With the virus and the lockdown and the potential for more lockdowns, we are not in normal times. Many people have lost their jobs, many businesses have failed, the economy is being held up by money being printed by the feds. That can't go on forever without consequences. We are in a recession, so I hope we do not suffer a deep depression. This is a time of uncertainty, and I think the city should take a conservative financial position. I think we should be postponing discretionary spending to the extent possible. I would recommend that we conserve our cash until we have a better idea of what the future holds.
Thank you very much. And we'll begin our next question also with you, Rowena Turner. And that question is, what are your ideas on how to lessen the crime in Montessorino?
Crime has been increasing in Montessorino, and that's quite unfortunate. One of the things that we should look at is looking at ways in we can use the emergency preparedness for mitigating crime. We have had set up neighborhood watch programs in Montessorino. We need to continue with the CERT team, and I'm a strong supporter of the CERT team. We will be the eyes and ears of the crimes that's going on around Montessorino. We could pre-position some of our rescue equipment and emergency supplies that we can use to mitigate crimes. These are called ICPs, or Incident Command Posts. But unfortunately, Montessorino doesn't have enough CERT volunteers to man them. So I would encourage everyone to be CERT trained. I have actually facilitated the development of neighborhood watch programs. These are focused on preventing crime and getting people to know one another and to work together. And I have spoken with several organizations about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Burton Craig.
So crime inside of our city has risen because we have become a target for a lot of gangs and a lot of other people to come in and cherry pick. They know that there are a lot of wealthy people that live in our neighborhood, and we need to continue to expand the neighborhood watch program. When I was on the council, I participated in a number of those, and it's always amazing the response that we get when we host these. And the neighbors are all very eager to do this. And I think if we continue to present this to more and more residents inside of the city, they will want to participate in them. We also need to really stress that we need to put our stuff away. We got to start locking our houses. We can't leave our MacBook Pros, and we can't leave our iPads in the car. So many times when I hear about a car getting broken into, it's because somebody left a briefcase or a backpack in there. And unfortunately, we just don't live in the times where we're able to do that anymore.
Thank you very much. Daniel Labouvey.
As a CERT team member, there was recently some break-ins along the Greenwood Road and Greenwood Lane area. And we basically came together with the police department and had a neighborhood watch meeting and went through a Pareto of various ideas to thwart any kind of future activity there, up to including the police department deployed a lot of ununiformed folks just riding their bikes around and so forth. The recent incident that was caught on Nextdoor of an armed suspect in a garage was one of my neighbors. And I think that what thwarted that, per her and the police department, was the installation of some cameras. Even dummy cameras will help. They basically took off after they saw that there was a camera filming them that was actually set up as a raccoon camera. And so it's very common sense type things can really be helpful to thwart these sorts of activities.
Thank you. And now Bryan Mekechuk.
I think that awareness by residents is an important factor in knowing what people can do. So for example, motion detectors with lights, motion activated lights in key areas, and cameras are great, but people need to make the investment in those. And then there's the other thing, it's just awareness, keeping your vehicles locked. And in fact, I was walking a precinct the other day, and someone told me that their house had been broken into because they left their garage door open in an unlocked car. The thieves went, opened the garage door, and entered the garage. So I think there's a lot of community awareness that's required.
Thank you. The next question is going to be another raise your hand. And this is about another position or a proposition that the league does support. Please raise your hand if you are supportive of Prop 16 that the league supports and which would amend the California State Constitution to allow the use of race, gender, color, ethnicity, and national origin in public education, public employment, and public contracting. So I don't see any hands raised. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our next question, and we're going to begin with you, Bryan Mekechuk. As a city councilor, how will you work to maintain the unique character of our community?
I'd like to, as a city council member, I'd like to ensure that our design guidelines are followed and that we manage our development. Importantly, I think that we need to understand our fence heights and pass an ordinance on that to change our fence heights. But we're largely a semi-rural community, and I think we have to become also more neighborly. So I would promote that.
Thank you. We'll next move on to Rowena Turner.
Yes, I think one of the things that we can make sure that our representatives in Sacramento understand that we don't want to see irrational, uncontrolled development in Montessorino. One of the things that I was an ad hoc committee member with Council Member Labouvey was to make sure that our general plan was less general and more specific and may offer some protection from legislation. We started this process and this is still work in progress. I think we should look at other opportunities to do something like we did with the La Hacienda property, where we worked out a mutually agreeable solution that was a win-win situation for the developer as well as for the city, in which we met our RHNA numbers. I think I consider this a great compromise. Housing is a difficult issue in Montessorino. The council must find ways to facilitate new housing and at the same time preserve the character of our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Burton Craig?
So we are blessed to live in Montessorino, and one of the things that drew us was the rural atmosphere that we have here. When I leave to go to work in the morning, there's always an elderly couple that walks up and down our street, and walkability has always been one of the things that I feel makes Montessorino special. And as I've talked to a number of neighbors, and I've talked to some friends who live over in the Bicknell area, we really need to make sure that we look for every opportunity to make walkability a key part of Montessorino. I'll have to say, with the shelter in place period that we're in right now, I've seen even more people out walking. I've seen more people jogging. I've seen more people enjoying the outdoors. And Montessorino is a great place to do that. We need to continue with our philosophy of design that are built into our design guidelines. We need to make sure that we are keeping our communities free of light pollution. We need to make sure that we are all right, I'm done again.
Thank you very much.
I could go on that one.
Thank you. And Daniel Labouve.
Yeah, this is an issue that is very important to me. I think the environment is ripe for abuse, and the incentives are just pointing in the wrong direction, with the California legislature opening up a lot of loopholes to enable developers to develop. And with Montessorino pricing at over $1,000 a square foot, it just is, the incentives are there to maximize housing. So whenever a property turns over and a developer takes it over, there is generally some rush to develop something quite large and encumbering on the neighbors. Now, one of Ms. Turner and I partnered to create the Good Neighbor Site and Architecture Development Transparency resolution that has not been implemented since February, but does simple things like, hey, drive some awareness to the community about developments that are going to happen so that people can be aware and start pushing back if they don't feel it's proper. The next thing is too much talk against objective standards.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. That brings us to the end of our questions that were submitted by the community or developed by the league. And so this next question will technically be your last question and your closing statement. So we'd like you to respond, and I'm going to have you give your closing statement in the reverse order from the opening statement. So we'll be beginning with you, Rowena Turner, and then we'll have Bryan Mekechuk, Daniel Labouve, and Craig Burton. I will get your name correct the more I say it, Mr. Bouvet. Okay, the question is, please respond to this question. What question do you wish you had been asked tonight and why? You have 90 seconds to respond.
I don't really have a particular question that I think we didn't touch on. I think our citizens did a good job sending out their questions, but I would like to say a few closing remarks. I want to say that I feel incredibly fortunate to live in Montessorino. We live in a beautiful place with family-oriented values and wonderful people. I want to keep Montessorino the same town my son grew up in, and the same town for others who may choose to raise their families. It's clear that we can deal with the housing element by trying to fly under the state's radar. I think we need to face these issues head on and get creative about ways to push back on mandates that don't make sense for Montessorino. Transparency, accountability, and public engagements are big issues for me. I think our government needs to be responsive to the people in the community, and I will work to ensure that. Tonight, I humbly ask for your vote. I want to be your voice, and I will work hard to represent you on the City Council. So please vote for Rowena Turner. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Bryan Mekechuk.
The question that I wasn't asked specifically is, what will you, Bryan Mekechuk, do for Montessorino? And I wish you asked that question so I could outline how I will work for the citizens of Montessorino. I'm retired now, and I'll put in full effort as a member of Montessorino City Council. I want to improve our city and make it a better place for our employees to work. I'll bring unity to our community, which still has lingering bad memories over the hacienda development on Highway 9 and the proposed rezoning of the Baptist Church on Daves Avenue. I bicycle frequently through Daves Ave and into El Sereno Open Space Preserve, so I understand the differences in neighborhoods. We've got R144, R120 south of Highway 9, and mainly R144 south of Bicknell and through parts of Twin Creeks, and R120 along Daves Ave. These neighborhoods have differing issues from the R18 neighborhoods along Rose Ave and all along Winchester Boulevard through to La Recanada. Decisions for Montessorino must consider the perspectives of these different neighborhoods. I will be available to answer your phone call, to meet and have a coffee with you, or even go for a bike ride with you. I want to hear your concerns so I can help make Montessorino a better place for everyone.
Thank you very much. Daniel Labouve.
I've been a resident of Montessorino and raised my two children through the local schools here in Montessorino for 22 years. And so I really enjoy Montessorino. We recently remodeled our house and really like the way it's fixed up. And I had fully retired, intended to spend the rest of our days here. There's a subdivision, again, on the other side of our property that has now jeopardized my quality of life and my value proposition with Montessorino. I think that the City Council has recently overturned what has been a very clear decision from the neighbors. And I have a favorite quote. It's one constant in life. This is from Yellowstone. It's one constant in life. If you build something worth having, someone's going to try to take it. And I really do feel that I'm running for city council because the rural character of the city is under attack by the California legislature and developers. And I have made a lot of progress on these issues, but there's a lot more work to do. And we have to do it together because there's no one person that can do it. You have to do it as a team and really push back with a single voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Burton Craig.
The one question that I am kind of interested was not asked is, what about the rights of the property owners? That has always been a topic that has been of great interest to me. When I first ran for office, I was walking the neighborhood, and when I visited this one house over on Dave's Avenue, I was speaking with the owner there, and I was wondering why their garage was in such a funky part of their lot. And they quite flippantly said, well, you can thank a former council member and my neighbors for it. And while I respect that you should have neighborhood input to your house, you should also be able to improve your property the way you want to. And there has to be a give and take. When I was on the council, we worked with a number of projects that were pretty impressive, and there was a lot of initial resistance to them. And we worked very hard with the neighbors. We worked very hard with the owner to make sure that a project went in place that everybody could appreciate. I don't think there was one project that was brought before the council when I was there that we were unable to get through. There were no lawsuits involved. There were no threats of lawsuits. And we had a great, we ended up with a great result. So I really want to continue that while I'm on the council. I know that that people come to Montessorino to build the home of their dreams. I ask for your vote, and I'll continue to work hard to make that happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, candidates, for coming tonight. We wish you well in your campaign and greatly respect your candidacy for these very important offices. I would like to invite you to stay around after the forum if you'd like to give us some feedback on this process that we followed tonight. Otherwise, you will shortly be able to leave too. So again, thank you for your participation, and audience members, thank you for your attendance. We hope you have learned a lot tonight that will help you with your decision making. The League would also like to remind everyone to vote by November 3rd. We are so lucky here in Santa Clara County, and actually the whole of California now, that every registered citizen is able to vote by mail. You will be receiving your mail-in ballot in early October and can vote by completing that ballot and mailing it back in the provided postage-paid envelope, completing your ballot and dropping it off at any secure vote box located throughout the county, or you can visit a vote center to drop off your ballot, or to vote in person, or to get a replacement ballot if needed, and even to register to vote conditionally on that day. For additional information on candidates and ballot measures, please visit our local website, the Santa Clara County League website, which lists every city and all of their candidate forums and pros and cons. And for more information, we encourage our candidates and our local citizens to check out votersedge.com. All of our candidates should have received an invitation by now to enter their data. It's an excellent website that's put on by the League of Women Voters, and MapLight provides information on the candidates and ballot measures. And also, I would highly recommend ballotpedia.org for unbiased, comprehensive information. So again, thank you very much tonight, and audience members, be sure to vote and to vote early. That concludes this forum.